tell me what's going on. I can't tell you. There's no time. Follow me. And it's like, but we have so much time before the next scene starts. Let's just talk about it just a little bit.
It's a long drive.
His name is 4 letters.
What are we gonna talk
his name's
about?
4 letters. Just give me a name. Just give me his name. I know it's one more letter than him, but it's like, just give me a name, please. Hello and welcome to the movie podcast spoiler-free review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me in the quantum realm today is Shahbaz.
Hello, this is my tiny voice. I don't know, didn't really have a tiny voice. I don't know why I did one. It just felt like the right thing to do, and I'm sorry for all the people that we just lost that were listening.
And Anthony.
I'm gonna go tinier like this.
Oh my God! Why?
You know what? I don't feel bad anymore. I'm glad.
No.
I'm glad you stuck to it. Libra babies for life. You know?
Libras. When you're in the
Yeah,
quantum
that's what the
realm,
Libras sound like.
your voice and the octaves are so
The
small.
Octavia Spencers.
Is that the same as the octaves? Is that the same thing? The octaves?
No,
and
it's
the octaves?
Octavia Spencer. That's what we're talking about.
Is it not octaves?
Okay.
Well, you know what? In the
Octaves,
in,
yeah.
in the
In the quantum realm.
Octopus.
in the
It
world,
must be.
in the quantum realm, it's octaves.
That's
Okay.
true. I didn't. I
Because
forgot about
Octavia Spencer is queen of,
Right.
of the
That's-
Is queen of the quantum realm.
that. Yes, that's true.
It all makes sense. It is all connected. You know, this is obviously continuing her character. You know, the threat of her was introduced in the first Spider-Man film.
correct.
You know, when she was at the wrestling match, and now look at her. She is the ruler of the quantum realm. Not
Well,
sure how we got here.
Let me do my
but
Octavia
here we
Spencer
are.
impression. 1 second. Hold on.
Please.
No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that.
Don't do it. Don't do it, Shahbaz.
This ain't no
Hello,
featherweight
thank you.
division spa fry.
He did it. He did it. We're off to an incredible start here on the movie podcast. Like I said, this is our review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This is our spoiler-free discussion. We will not be giving any spoilers here. So if you came here for spoilers, get out of here. This is the wrong spot for that. But this is the movie podcast, so we can promise you a really good time, some great thoughts, some nice insights, and then our honest but not mean opinions of all movies, because that is what we do here. We are critical but not negative. We are honest but not mean. And that is the genesis of who we are when we started the show. This is what we're all about. Couple quick things I want to talk about before we get to our review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Yes, that is a very long title. We are right now, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Manscaped. Check out our show notes below to get 20% off and free shipping on your next order. We love working with Manscaped. Definitely check out all the incredible products that they have. We are very nicely groomed, as we always like to say here on the show, because we're on camera. You know, this is a podcast, but there's a video component. So please, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know who you think is going to win, Ant-Man or Kang. We just had a great contest where we gave away tickets to the premiere of this very movie. So a lot of lucky people got to see this movie early in Canada for the Canadian premiere. So thank you to everyone who entered that. We have lots more giveaways happening, so you don't want to miss anything. So if you want to make sure you're staying tuned with everything going on with the movie podcast, make sure you're following us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd at the movie podcast. You can even join our Discord because we'll have some spoiler discussions going on. You don't want to miss that. Episodes of the movie podcast may end, but the conversation doesn't have to stop there. I want to ask both of you, before we dive into all the quantum mania-ness of Ant-Man, Shay, how are you doing today?
You know, I'm doing great. We just got out of this movie, so I'm still kind of like, I think, processing my thoughts about it. I'm trying to find the right words of what I want to talk about. And you know, this is a Marvel movie. It's a big deal. So I want to make sure that we do it the justice that it deserves.
Definitely. Anthony, how about yourself? How are you doing? I almost didn't see you. You look like a floating head. But I'm glad you're here joining us today. Anthony's also wearing a camo cardigan.
Yes, I'm camouflaged.
If anyone was wondering.
But yeah, no, I'm doing well. You know, my life was at risk before watching the movie for a split second, but we got through it. All three of us got through it. It was an interesting moment, but yeah, it's such a weird time to be living. But other than that,
it is. You know, that's a story that we will tell one day on the movie podcast on a main episode. That's a main episode story for sure.
For sure.
For now,
so if you like,
it's going to the grave.
Now it's
Cradle
going with
to
us
the
to the grave.
grave.
But if you like what we're talking about, if you like what you're hearing, make sure you stay tuned because we have those main episodes that come out every few weeks or so. We like to try and do it every Monday, but sometimes the weeks are just so full that we have lots of interviews and reviews coming out. But main episodes, That's where you get the most bang for your buck. Long episodes, we're unhinged. If you like the intro to this show, you're going to love the main episodes because it's about an hour and a half of all of that. But let's get to the main event today, of course. This is our review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This film is going to be releasing in theaters on February 17th, and I want to say thank you to our friends at Disney Canada for inviting us to watch this film for review. Now, the film stars Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, and of course, Jonathan Majors as Kang. We also have Kathryn Newton joining the cast, taking over the role as Cassie. Now, Shay, I would love for you to give us your first reactions, but before I'm going to do that, I'm going to ask Anthony to tell us what this movie is all about.
In the film, which officially kicks off Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, superhero partners Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne return to continue their adventures as Ant-Man and the Wasp. Together with Hope's parents, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, the family finds themselves exploring the quantum realm, interacting with strange new creatures, and embarking on an adventure that will push them beyond the limits of what they thought was possible.
Thank you very much for that, Anthony. And like Anthony said, this is kicking off Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is the first of 3 films that we are getting this year. The next one will be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is going to be ending that trilogy. And then, of course, the Marvels, which is going to be releasing in July, which is the wild month that is going to be like one that I cannot wait to get to, but I'm also terrified because July is going to be absolutely crazy. Shay, kick us off with your first reaction to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a very ambitious film, and the issues that it comes with, though, is it never reaches the heights of what it is trying to achieve. There's a lot of great things that happen in this movie. There's a lot of fun moments, but overall, the film keeps a very steady pace and steady beat all the way throughout. I think some of the issues that the movie suffers with is in the beginning, the film kind of just spends maybe just a few minutes in the world of San Francisco and Earth, and then we're immediately brought into the quantum realm. Once we're in this quantum realm, there's really not much that you can attach yourself to. But the biggest issue that the film has is it takes way too long to get to our big bad villain. That's played by Jonathan Majors, aka Kang the Conqueror. I love the Ant-Man films. I think that there's such staples in the MCU. I think they don't get as much love as they deserve, and I was really hoping that this third film would kind of knock it out of the park and kind of really make it a big spectacle. And I think a lot of those things are there, but they just never fully develop themselves. And I think that's kind of where I left this movie going, I wish this stuck with me more. I wish I had a lot more memories about this movie, and I wish I just kind of enjoyed it more. Again, there are great things. The acting especially by Jonathan Majors is phenomenal, and he really shows us, especially in the last 10 minutes of this film, he really shows us why Kang is here to dominate, and he's going to be a major threat to the Avengers and anyone in the MCU.
A Jonathan Majors threat.
Jonathan, he's going to be a Jonathan Majors threat, Kang level threat.
Yes.
But again, we get that way too late in the film. I wish the story was memorable. I wish the characters were memorable. But overall, the movie played it really, really safe and kind of just went, from beginning to end without really raising an arm or raising a hair on my arm at all.
Oh, okay. You weren't raising your arms at all?
I didn't raise my arm at all. No, I didn't have any questions. No questions from me.
That's funny. No, Shay, I think you brought us some great points. And I think the word that you said close to the very beginning of your first reaction was ambitious. This movie is very ambitious. And because of that, it doesn't really feel like it's in line with the first 2 Ant-Man films, which were very much comedies, which were very much, action-driven, comedies that also had heist elements, but were very funny. And Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has some comedic moments, but there was never anything that reached the comedic charm of what the first films were. And I think because of that, it's lacking a little bit of the DNA. The characters are here, but you also don't have Paul Rudd's crew or Scott Lang's crew. You don't have Luis or anyone like that who's there to kind of be that comedic relief. So the moments that are supposed to be comedic relies on a lot of characters that were introduced to for the very first time in the quantum realm, where I think for myself in the quantum realm, because it's so detached from the rest of the world, and never felt like anything that was happening within here really mattered because it felt so disconnected. We're going to talk more about that, but Anthony, I would love for you to jump in. And we'll get the conversation going.
I share the same sentiment that Shay has just said. Like, it's basically, there was a lot of ambition, but it lacked depth. And I felt like there is a lot of story that was being given to me, but it didn't lead to anything. It just felt like it was a lot of filler, a lot of like this idea that Kang is this being, but they don't really mention him until you see him later on in the film, and he's like this most powerful god, that he is the conqueror. But I just didn't feel like he was a conqueror in this movie. I just didn't feel his presence, even though Jonathan Majors plays him phenomenally, and he gives a really great performance, especially with building a character that's going to last for a huge chunk of this Phase 5 MCU and be the main villain of these new Avengers. I just felt like getting to him and making this the bang for Phase 5, it just didn't do it for me. And there is a lot of great things. I think the visuals stand out, but sometimes they don't. There is also a lack of realistic set designs. I felt like there could have been utilized more practically, instead of feeling like everything was shot in front of a green screen. That's what it does feel like. It feels like, they were on this big lot in this big hangar, and they shot all these amazing sequences. But when you shoot so much CG and you don't add the practicalness of these worlds, you take the viewer out of it. It just feels like I'm watching almost like a commercial. And I don't know if you got the same vibe, but that's how I felt. Like, I felt like everything was so well placed and so fine-tuned that it just came off so fake. And they do share very similar palettes to Thor Love and Thunder, because it has the same color palette. It has this vibe of a world that lives underground, but it also feels like something that I would have found in Asgard. So it didn't have its uniqueness to it. It didn't have its own signature that Thor created with Ragnarok and then with Love and Thunder. And I felt like it was kind of copying it. But overall, like, there are fun times. It's sufficient enough, but I wish this left a lasting impression. I wish this was bigger and it set the next 5 or 6 years of the MCU. I wish this was something that Ant-Man can end his, the trilogy on a bigger note. And I felt like it just lacked that luster.
Support for the Movie Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who have trusted Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code MoviePod at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 14 million balls.
You know what I didn't know I needed, but I needed, is an LED light on my shaver.
Oh my God.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
There is darkness, especially around that area. It works so well. You can really pinpoint all the hairs and you're like, okay, I got this point. Because hair kind of like starts to mesh and you really don't see it properly. But with this LED light, it's super bright and you can get everything precision cut.
It's a 4000K LED spotlight, so you are literally putting a spotlight to your genitals down there to make sure you're treating them as you should.
The skin safe proprietary technology that they use for the lawnmower is really good. Like I was always a little hesitant going down there, and then I felt safe. I felt like there was protection there.
Manscaped just makes it so easy to choose a tool, whatever you're using, be it the beard trimmer, the lawnmower, the weed whacker, and it just feels like there is like this accessibility to it that I absolutely love.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code MoviePod at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code MoviePod. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job at Manscaped.
Your balls will thank you.
Your balls will thank you.
Your balls will thank you.
That's a great point, because this is the end of a trilogy, but it really is the kickoff of what's to come. And obviously, we're not going to go into any spoilers here, but yeah, Jonathan Majors is the future of the MCU. He is, he's great as Kang. I am so excited to see where he pops up next, because he's just that kind of character that, what variant, who is he going to be, where is he going to show up? But like what you said, Anthony, and like what you mentioned too, Shay, that because this world's is so reliant on CG, and again, there's no egregious looking CG in this movie. There's not a moment that we were just like, oh, that doesn't look good. But it just felt, because everything was, either shot on the volumetric stage or was blue screen, everything feels very flat. And when you're in a quantum realm, which is supposed to feel like that's in between time and space, it never felt like that. It almost felt like it was just too grand. But there's a lot of things I want to say that I do like in this movie. And I think, of course, Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly, when they're together, they're so fun. There's a montage at the beginning of this movie that I'm like, man, like they work so well together. And I wish they were together more in the film, because a lot of this movie, it really is the family being separated and then they kind of come back together. It gave me funny, because we just watched this movie not too long ago, Strange Worlds, because it very much was just like, oh, we're going into this underground world that's part of our universe, but it's not, and it's in and out of time, and there's very strange things happening. It just felt like almost like an episode of a show that I would have watched growing up, where it's like, oh, their main characters got shot through time, and now they're in this random world that has technology, but it's also feels like they're, also like archaic in a lot of ways as well too. Like it just kind of felt like this was an episode of like a What If show that was stretched out over 2 hours.
Yeah, when we're talking about the quantum realm, I think the thing that kind of stood out to me the most about it was how it just never felt real. And I know that it's not a real place, but movies transport us, and I never felt transported. It always just felt like it was the same looped screensaver happening in the background of the same ooze or creatures flying, and nothing left a lasting impression.
You see where the sets end almost. You know what I mean? Like you can see where it's like, here's where we can interact with stuff, and then anything past this, that it's this is not
like
that.
When you step out of the line of a map and it's all of a sudden like, get back in. This movie also is surprisingly driven by Michelle Pfeiffer. This is Janet's story. Yes. This is purely about her from beginning to end. But I wish, again, that there was a bit more that she was given to do in this movie. A lot of the times her role is just, I can't talk about this right now. I'll tell you all in a bit. Or there's a part of my backstory that I can't dive into. They kind of skirt around a lot of her backstory, when I feel like you really should have just made that the forefront of it and really developed her relationship with Kang a lot more. So that's really, really what I wanted from this movie, because the stakes truly just never felt high. And like you mentioned, Daniel, it is because we're stuck in this quantum realm, so maybe that's why. But even when the Guardians are fighting in space, or when people are fighting elsewhere in this world, it still feels like that could be a moment that'll affect us. And I guess in the quantum realm, it never felt like that.
I totally agree. Like it's the character performances, I think as a group, when they're together, they work so well. I love Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly together. I think they just work well together, and they have this presence. Even like if I go back to Endgame with Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd's
Rudd, yeah,
showing up, they just work so good. They're like, okay, this is like one of the best team ups in the MCU, and you don't get a lot of that in here. And when you do, it's amazing. But it just you wish there was more.
You definitely do.
They added Kathryn Newton as Cassie Lang, and I felt that she did an all right job, but it just felt like her lines and how she performed them just felt like it just lacked the ambition of the character that it's supposed to be. This is the character that's going to continue the Ant-Man and this world. I'm like, I don't know if I want to see her again as Cassie Lang, because I don't vibe with her. And maybe this is my personal opinion, but it's just this vibe that she gave for me. Like, I hope she learns from this and she evolves this character, because she's too whimsical. She's too princess-like. She doesn't have the rawness that I would think a Cassie Lang would have from, you know, learning from her father.
Yeah, I think when you're speaking about Kathryn Newton, I think, you know, she's great as Cassie, but in the terms of what we've gotten as Cassie before in the first two films, where she's a bit of an oddball, she really feeds off her father. You know, obviously, yes, when you grow up, you lose a lot of that, and you know, you might change, but that core essence of you still remains. That wasn't in this character. This version of Cassie was kind of just your generic teenager. I'm gonna be a bit angsty, I'm gonna be a bit more of a recluse, I'm gonna, you know, not do what everybody wants. And it just kind of made that character seem more generic than it should have. Cassie was so interesting. She was such a goofball. She had a lot of fun. She was garnering a lot from her father, and she was going to be that protege. And you know, Paul Rudd is such a charismatic person, and he's so great in this, like you mentioned, Anthony and Daniel. And when him and Evangeline Lilly are together, they make such a fun pair. I also want to give a huge shout out to, you know, even though he's one of the most fantastic actors out there, Michael Douglas. He's so good.
He is
as Hank Pym again.
Great.
Like, you just love him. You love him. You love seeing him on screen. Again, I wish we got more of him. Some of his story kind of felt like it was just in the background, or when we needed him to be here, he'll kind of show up.
He's great. Michael Douglas in this film is so good. He's just like he steals every scene that he's in. He's just phenomenal.
He plays him like he was the Ant-Man before Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
You know, like he gave off that vibe.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, yes. And you know, you've never seen him as Ant-Man, but like he has this aura in this film that's like, whoa. When you're a really great actor, like no matter what movie is in front of you, I'm pretty sure he probably was looking at like nothing, and he had to create these scenes. He's such a good actor, and it's
I believe anything he tells me. He could start throwing out some quantum science, and I'm like, I believe you, Michael Douglas, because you know, Anthony, like you said, like you believe whatever they're telling you. I do want to talk really quickly about the first hour of this film. It's establishing a lot. We're establishing a brand new kind of area out of the quantum realm when it comes to this is like this kind of land before time area that we've kind of get thrown into, and then Shay, you mentioned it too, where it's like there's so much setup to introduce who Kang is, where, you know, the audience, we all know Kang is coming. We know people are very excited for Jonathan Majors as Kang, but this first hour does so much where it's like him, oh, it's him, oh, he's after it, and it's like there's so much like just foreshadowing before we actually get to him, or before we actually reveal what the issue is. It's like, it's that thing that movies do sometimes where it's like, tell me what's going on. I can't tell you. There's no time. Follow me. And it's like, but we have so much time before the next scene starts. Let's just talk about it just a little bit.
It's a long drive.
His name is 4 letters. What are we gonna talk about? 4 letters. Just give me a name. Just give me his name. I know it's one more letter than him, but it's like, just give me a name, please. Because it's very noticeable. And I know it's a silly thing to nitpick on, but you'll notice when you watch this movie, the first hour, they're just so hung up on just calling him, or he's like this, or he's here, or him, or this is that.
The Conqueror.
And it's like,
him,
the Conqueror. It's like, just give us that name drop. So when it finally does happen, and when this movie kicks into gear, there's some really fantastic moments. And I think there's some visually just beautiful moments in this movie too. Again, not spoiling anything, but there's some really cool moments where it's like a reversal of what we've seen when it comes to like, oh, this is how kind of ants work. And we're seeing it now from a different perspective, which is really cool. And I would say the final battle in this film has the energy, and I think just the nuance, which I wish the kind of the rest of the film adapted, where it's just like, you know what? This is a crazy movie where people could shrink and grow and not turn into ants, talk to ants and control ants. Let's just have fun with it. Let's go there. And I think the last, I would say 20 to 30 minutes of this movie really is, okay, we're an Ant-Man movie. Let's remember what we are, and let's dive into it, and let's have fun, and let's have a spectacular finale. And I think this movie does have a great finale and sets up some incredible ideas and, you know, storylines for what's to come. But a lot of it, I think, will get lost. At no point in this movie did I feel like this movie is bad. It's not that at all. But I think when you're having a movie that's having such incredible characters that we've seen throughout the last 8 years now, I wish there was a little bit more to remember. Because I think when I think of Ant-Man now, I'm always thinking of the first film, the second film, Endgame. But there's not a lot from this film that feels as memorable, other than, of course, Kang and Michael Douglas, to be honest with you, who's, I think, fantastic in this film. Shall we get to our final recommendations of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? Shahbaz, I will get you to start us off.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, like I mentioned in the beginning, it has a lot of ambitious things that it wants to try to do, but it just never fully reaches the heights of those. The cast is great, and when they're working together, they're phenomenal. But I don't think this is the movie that you were hoping to see and waiting for and finally getting to understand who Kang is. So for that reason, I think it's safe to say wait till it comes out on Disney Plus, add it to your queue. First day you want to watch it, sit down, watch the IMAX enhanced version of this movie, and just enjoy the ride from the leisure of your own couch.
I love that. I'm going to be right there with you, Shay. I think this is one that you could easily add it to your queue. This is a film that has some incredible moments, some great performances from Jonathan Majors, from Paul Rudd, from Michael Douglas, and has some really cool ideas. But I think overall, there wasn't anything in this film that really left a lasting impression with me. And I know MCU diehards like us, like me, we're going to go see this movie opening night. You're going to want to see it on the big screen. And by all means, that is what movies are there for, to experience on the big screen. And there's some great moments in this. But for general audiences, I think this is one that you're safe to watch on Disney Plus when it releases. Watch it day one, like Shay said, or watch it as you're leading up to what's coming down the road, because there's some really great moments in here, but it's not one that you necessarily have to run out and go watch opening day. Anthony, take us home.
We're all on the same ant. This is also an added to your
Anthony.
This is also
we're all on Anthony.
Anthony. This is an added to your queue. I don't know what else to say. You guys kind of summed it up. If you love the MCU, you're gonna definitely go watch this, and I think you should. I think you should go watch it. Watch it on the big screen. Enjoy the story, understand it. I don't think there's enough story for you to be like, okay, this is what I expected from this film, and I don't think the answers that you were looking for could be found in this film. And that's kind of like where I'm at with it. I feel like Marvel did a great job of advertising it and marketing it in a certain way,
as they always do.
That, hey, this is going to be the story that you learn more about Kang, and you do, but not what you expected and what you wanted. But overall, it's passable in my books as a film. Like it has a good story, great acting, but it doesn't give you the bang for your buck that you wanted from this MCU film.
Thank you very much to both of you for that. And of course, that was our spoiler-free review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. As a reminder, please make sure you join us on Discord. We'll be talking about this movie in full spoilers after the release day, so we'll definitely talk about it there and more. And of course, you can catch a brand new episode of the movie podcast every single Monday, and watch out throughout the week for our reviews and interviews on all the latest movies and series. We are talking to Kathryn Newton from this very movie, so look forward to all of our coverage from that this week. It might be out already, so make sure you look forward to all of that and more. There's lots going on here on the movie podcast. We are so happy that you are on this journey with us. You may have seen us on the front page of Apple Podcasts. If this is the first time you're listening or watching one of our reviews, thank you so much for being here. We hope that you stay. We hope that you come back. We have an amazing community of movie and TV show lovers, and we want to be a great positive force in the world for that. So please hang around. We're so happy that you're here. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.